The purpose of this is to preserve your memories, ideas, and experiences. And this is for your grandchildren and great-grandchildren and whoever. Now, each person's life has joys and sorrows, so some of these questions will elicit strong emotions. Just so that you know, I would ask that you be as open and candid as you care to be. Okay? All right. What is the earliest memory you have from childhood?
When I was about 4, I can remember my grandfather carrying, this was in Norway, he was carrying home a basket of eggs. And he laid it down and I picked it up and a bunch of them fell out. And my grandfather was not very pleased with me because eggs were very expensive. Very expensive. So that was my first one that I remember, and probably the first error that I ever made.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And what do you remember most about your mother and father?
My mother speaking battled Icelandic. And everybody kind of laughing because she would use one word in English, one word in Norwegian, one word in Icelandic, and I didn't know whether she was coming or going. But she was trying to learn the language because when I am 4 years, shortly after I'm 4, then that's when we arrive in Iceland as a family. It was my mother, my father, my half-brother who had just lost his mother the year before, and myself.
And about your father?
Oh, he was a jolly fellow. Very, very handsome. And a very nice human being.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember him going to work, coming back home, because his idea of success was to own a fishing boat. That was very important. And he did. Oh. And he bought one by the name of, that he named Palmi, P-A-L-M-I. And he got lost at sea on that same boat.
Mm. How did your family spend time together?
Oh, we spent mainly time when the weather was so bad you couldn't get outside. Or on weekend. But there was always a conductive togetherness. We would read, we would darn socks, we would crochet, we would knit, and that's how we spent many, many nights when the weather was so bad that we were ready to abandon if we had to.
And can you describe your daily life when you were a child?
Yeah, if depending again what part of the year it was, because if it was during the winter and there was a lot of snow, we traveled by skis from one place to another, including to school. Or we had on snow socks, which were nothing at all but socks that went to the crotch, and they were sewn a little bit, a piece of sheepskin or something like that at the bottom, so that you could slide a little bit and glide a little bit. But that's how you went to where you were going. I cannot remember any car. Can't remember one person owning a car. There were trucks that brought in the food from the ships to the warehouse, and then the salesmen would go there to, the ones who owned the shops. They would go there to get their supply. But that was all you ever saw. And you either walked from one town to another or you took a boat. Railroad have never been a part of Icelandic living. Never. The horse has, and your feet.
Did you ever take trips or vacations with your family? And if so, where did you go and what did you do?
The other side of the fjord, across the fjord. And we would do that all in the summertime, and it was a purposeful trip because we went to pick berries. But my mother, who was very creative, very, very good at thinking up all kinds of stuff, and she would bring food, and I'll never be able to figure this out. Why did she always bring a beautiful tablecloth to go out in the wilderness to pick berries? But she always did, and when there was time to eat, she would find a beautiful spot, especially into a little dell, and put the tablecloth on and all the food, and we would sit around it. And that was our leisure part of our trip. This was a resting period, this was a food period. And if you had something to complain about, that you didn't want any more berries, well, you could still do that too.
And what were some of the worst times in your family?
The worst times? I don't really recall any real bad times. Many years later, I did learn that my mother had lost a boy, which was probably the good explanation why Christiana, the youngest, is 15 years younger than I am.
Uh-huh.
Because I think that was the period that mother had a miscarriage, and it was a boy. And I think my father always wanted, he already had, no, that's not right. He didn't had two girls.
Mm-hmm.
And my half-brother that he brought with him when he left Norway.
Mm-hmm. And what were some of the best times like?
Probably when I would be lucky enough to get a book. And I went anywhere I could that I thought, and books were very, very popular as a price for almost anything that you did. And I went to the Salvation Army Sunday School because we always carried a card. And every time when we got there, our card was being punched, and if we had met their quota, we got a book. And so I would be awarded books for this and a book for that and book for the other. And I had more books than I knew what to do with because I loved to read. That was a real jolly time.
Mm.
But I had no allegiance to the Salvation Army, but that book was a very important one.
Mm-hmm. Did you have a nickname?
I never had a nickname until I came here, which really was very, very strange to me. And to this very day, I have never signed anything by Jenny. But everybody calls me that. I don't think that 99% of the people that I know or talk to, that they know that my name is Jenfrid. They all think my name is Jenny.
And you said a little bit, but what did you do for fun when you were a child?
For enjoyment?
Yes.
Play ball,
Ah.
handball, and gymnastic.
Mm-hmm.
I was with the team, both as, oh, actually there were three of them. I was on this very important swimming team, gymnastic, and handball. And if I may tell you just a little story, which I thought at the time was very, very cute. We were competing with other towns. And there were a bunch of at that point in time, there were a bunch of British soldiers that had occupied Iceland, and they were living in the school. This is during the summer. And they loved to go out because our ball field was right by the school. And they thought that I was a reasonable good player. And they asked somebody, what's her name? And they have a sense of, Icelanders have a sense of humor all by themselves. And they answered and said, her name is Ófríð instead of Jenfrid. Well, it happens that Ófríð means ugly. and I could hear these Englishmen going, Ófríð, Ófríð, come on, Ófríð. And I was just so taken back by this because I understood what Ófríð meant and they didn't. So I always thought that was a funny story to call me that.
You said that you read. What was your favorite book?
I had no favorite.
Uh-huh.
Each one was a favorite while I was reading it.
Mm.
But I don't like what you would call novels.
Mm.
Anything that I have ever read in my life has to have a true basis, like a biography, autobiography, something in relation to history. And when I came to this country, that was the first thing that I looked for, and first thing I got were historical novels. Now, novels didn't bother me in the history part, but just to give me a novel about Joe Blow falling in love with another race or whatever it might be, which is supposed to be so fancy, I have never read any of those at all. But I read all of the books that had been written about the war between the states. Very, very well-known authors. James Street wrote O Gauntlet, O Promised Land, and they were absolutely fantastic. And of course, the movie that was made in Atlanta, Gone with the Wind. To me, that's the ultimate in a good book.
Mm-hmm.
And it still is.
What did you do during the summers?
I worked in the industry of fishing and herring. I can remember being called at the age of 10 to help my mother. And I had my own little slicker type outfit to wear so that I wouldn't get wet and it wouldn't get onto my clothes, because all you had to do with those were to spray them with the water, and then hang them up. But I did that for years and until I went to college. Every summer that's what I did. And the herring does come in at any hour on the 24 hours. But until that I became an independent little producer with the herring, I would always work beside my mother. Mm. And I got to a point where I can remember starting, where my feet would be straight up in the air and my hands would be at the bottom of the barrel. And that's a funny sight.
Mm-hmm. Did you have a best friend?
Yes, but each one, it wasn't always there are still few, but friendship in a place like Iceland is not where you are with them 24 hours a day, because each one of us have obligations towards our parents and towards our school. But I still see people that I went to grade school with, and now have been gone from the island over 60 years. I have gifts from some of my friends, and I call them more friends than a best friend.
Like you didn't have a favorite book, you didn't necessarily have a best friend.
No, I had a bunch of that I knew very well, and lots of them I admired, and that seemed to be reciprocal. But well, there are still a couple of them that I went to Finnish school with. One lives in Colorado, and we talk off and on all these years, and we each one of us have been here around 60 years. But I don't call her my best friend. I call her a friend.
When you were a teenager, what parts of school did you like best or least?
I liked the arts and crafts period. I was always considered to be reasonably good at creating embroidery and stuff of that nature. I never learned really to knit and to crochet. I still know one stitch in each, and that has carried me for 60 years. And I would probably say I have made 160 scarves in that length of time, with either one stitch or the other.
And you did play sports at school, yes?
Oh yes. I was very, very much with handball and gymnastic.
Right.
I was rather good at both, and swimming. I think I got the first medal that any girl had gotten for swimming. Boys seemed to excel in that.
Right.
Because they could do the crawl, and we would suffer for months just to learn how to do it.
Didn't you also ice skate?
Yes, I did.
You were quite good at that too, yes?
Yes. For a period of time, I met a fellow from Edinburgh, Scotland. He was in the military, and he thought I was a very good skater, and he was skating on the ice, and he asked me whether I would be kind enough to let him skate as partner. And I used to carry my skates during the lunch hour, trot, and then skate for an hour, and then go back to my work. And he married an Icelandic girl that I had known since I was a child. So I mean, it was nothing at all. It was just that we both admired skating.
Well, maybe he was interested in you.
No, he was not.
He was not?
No.
But do you remember your first boyfriend?
Oh, I think I smiled at least at 2 or 3.
Okay.
At a time.
Do you remember the first one?
No.
What did you like about...
I was so fickle-minded, I was looking over here at 3 o'clock and over here looking at another one at 4.
I see.
Yeah.
And when you looked at them, what was it you liked about them?
Their accomplishment, like they were good skiers or good skaters or good in football, but most of it that they were good looking, that went with it.
Okay. Did you get along with your parents?
Yes. My mother was the boss.
Okay, and as long as you know that, everything's fine, right?
I didn't always like for her to be the boss. The best story that I can remember, I love to dance. Oh, I think that I wanted rather dance than eat. And she didn't want me to go, because he thought it was, every summer particularly, it was too much of a mixture of people coming from here and here and here and here. But I didn't give a hoot whether I danced with the guy from over here or there or anywhere else. And I would try to sneak. And one time I was dancing so well. Oh, it was the beautiful steps that I was doing. And all of a sudden I find this hand on my shoulder, patting. And I looked up and there's my mother. And she says, follow me. And I thought, holy cow, here we go. Well, I walked in behind her all the way home, and she didn't say a word. And I walked into my room, and just in a little bit, here comes my mother and into the room, and she is carrying a bottle of soda pop. And she says, I hope it tastes as good here as it did down at the Hillside. I mean, her sense of humor was good too. And that I will never forget. I also liked very much all the stuff that she got from the Europe. And if you had all that contact, that you could get all this good stuff from Europe, which always was dried fruit. And it always came in a wooden box. But when I came home through the laundry, I knew that the box was there with all the stuff. So I would pick a few pieces en route. But then I didn't know what to do with the pit. And I would get myself a little saucer. And one day she comes home and she looks at me and she says, I had a dream last night. I said, oh? She said, yes. She said, I was dreaming that underneath your bed was a saucer with a bunch of prune pits. I said, that's totally impossible. And she said, well, let's take a look. She found my damn saucer with the prune pits. And I never would steal anything from in the pot, except for razors, because I left my Oh, it was so funny. She would do all kinds of stuff.
It sounds like perhaps your mother had the greatest influence on you at this time. Is that correct?
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God, yes.
Yeah.
But I hated her for finding out the things that I was trying to hide. But I think everybody goes through that. I don't think that I was alone. Mm-mm. Oh, yeah.
Did you celebrate any special family or ethnic holidays at your home?
No, it was just, well, like June 17th was a very important, because that was the Independence Day, just like July 4th is here. Christmas always was a very festive. My mother was a good cook, and of course he had to learn the Icelandic food, just like I have had to learn the American food, because I had gone to home economics school after I finished Kvennaskólann in Reykjavik, and I'll tell you, I think that was a waste of time, because liver pudding and sheep's head and all that stuff, you just don't go out and say, I'll have a calf after and a sheep's head, but you can do that in Iceland. So my learning there, and I had to learn really from scratch. And sometimes I would kind of get all enthusiastic about something that someone was telling me, it's so easy, Jenny, But the main thing that I wanted to learn here to begin with were these stupid pies. Everybody knew how to make a pie. I had never even eaten one.
Really?
No, until it was brought on board with the Americans. There's no such thing as a piece of pie in Iceland.
Really? Because I've had rhubarb pie.
Well, not there.
Oh no, rabarbarasupa.
Oh, soups are very important. Yeah, no. But so when I came here, I met a lovely lady from Ogden, Utah, who were, of the Latter-day Saint group. And I've confided in her that I was very much interested in learning how to make a pie. And she said, Jenny, she said, it is so easy, and I'll tell you. You just go to the commissary and you buy a can of Crisco. On the can of Crisco is the recipe of how to make a pie.
Uh-huh.
And I thought, that sounds good. So I went to the commissary and I bought a 3-pound can of Crisco.
3 pounds.
3 pounds. I wasn't going to be running short on it. So it says on there, it says 3 heaping tablespoonfuls of Crisco. And I went as deep as I could go into the 3-pound can of Crisco. And it was up about 6 inches. And I said out loud to myself, I wonder if this is what the Americans would call a heaping. Well, by the time I had called Peg, given her my sinful things that I had done, and her coming over to help me, I had 6 pies. But I didn't have enough in the cupboards to fill the 6 pies.
Right, yeah.
No. You see, and I tried chocolate pudding, vanilla pudding. I mean, that's all I had. And it was such an experience. And my first pork roast, I have filled the pot with oil.
Oh no!
I didn't know that there was that much fat on the pork. Well, you just try that. You go to India and try to cook their way. I think you will have problems too.
Oh. And how did your family celebrate your birthdays?
Oh, that was not as much as when you were confirmed. When you were confirmed, that's almost like a wedding.
Mm.
But birthdays were always just within the family, and you got a present, and it was always something nice. But I never saw fruit except at Christmas time. And you could sometimes, we would save our one orange and 2 apples until they were rotten, because we didn't want to spoil it by eating the whole thing at once. You had to spread it out. And that was what you had.
Mm.
But you had a birthday cake, and everybody wished you birthday, and you got either a present or money.
Mm.
Mm-hmm. It's always very nice. But it was very little.
Mm.
It wasn't like $5 or, it was just a little bit.
Mm. Oh.
And when I started to work myself, like when I was 10 and got all that money from working beside my mother, I went and got the money, and she was about 2 feet away with her hand out. So it was spent in such a hurry, because it went right from my hand right into hers. And that was the family budget.
Oh. So what was the best gift you ever received?
Mm-hmm.
What was?
Cannot even. You see, I probably never was given time enough to count it. I don't believe so.
So money was the best gift?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But I can remember giving you something like $1, and you went to the dime store and you bought stuff.
Mm-hmm.
No, your brother always spent it in a hurry.
Mm-hmm.
You might split it into at least 2 trips. Yeah. So
What was the best gift you ever gave?
that I ever gave?
Mm-hmm.
I think probably my biggest joy of giving is the things that I have given to the old people's home in Iceland, which I've done for years. But the most but appreciation, you see, I don't know who is going to get in this stuff. But my family, like Christiana, my sister Ingrid, and Nana,
Mm-hmm.
Christiana's granddaughter, the first granddaughter. She is so appreciative that she never lets me forget. And he can tell me things, what I gave her when she was 10, 15, 20, 25.
Mm-hmm.
And I enjoy that.
So it sounds like the best gifts are those that are well received.
Yeah, and I don't even know who gets them.
Uh-huh.
And that, but you know, it's a very good story about that. You see, with my name being what it is, that the group in Iceland, they thought I was an American. And they wrote me a thank you note. And that was written in English. They decided to have a luncheon for me at the place where the old people live. And they started to talk to me in English. And I finally turned around to one of them and said, you don't have to talk to me in English. I can speak Icelandic. But I should have said, I am Icelandic.
Mm-hmm.
But finally, then all of it came. I have at this particular point in time, I have a cousin who is in that home. She used to be a school, she was in charge of a school. Unfortunately, she had the misfortune of having family problems, and she, her only way to go was go into alcohol. But for the last few years, nobody comes to my house that I don't send something to her, because she is doing very well now as far as her alcohol is concerned. But she is a person who was extremely well educated and having, what do you call a fellow or a girl who is in charge of a school?
Principal.
Principal. She was the principal of a school. But I enjoy sending her, and Christiana and these two that just left this morning, they have things that I'm sending her. And she is, and people just don't understand that someone, I haven't seen her in years, but she needs help. She needs something to really build up her ego, and getting something new, something that somebody else can admire on her, is very, very, very important to her at the moment. So I'm having a ball with that.
Mm-hmm.
And I have not done any scarves or anything like that, because I just have not been able to do it. Oh, but my hands are much better than what they used to be.
They look better.
Yeah, but the other part is gone too. So what are you going to do? Yeah, so that takes care of that.
So what family traditions were the most meaningful to you?
Well, it isn't very easy for someone who is a foreigner in a foreign land to have what you call tradition, because they are learning the habits in the country and trying to keep something that they left.
Mm-hmm.
So tradition doesn't really belong there. I don't see too many traditions within any family that I know, of my age, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
I really don't know any of them. And so I never saw any special traditions.
How about when you were growing up?
Traditions?
Mm-hmm.
I think that just the days came and the days went.
Mm-hmm.
And if you had a weather in a country like Iceland is so dependent upon what you do. You might have decided that you are going to do this tomorrow. But it's like the men said about weather condition in Iceland, wait 10 minutes and you will have a different weather.
Right.
And so everything depended on, so you always decided almost everything you did is done at the last minute. You can say, I hope to do something, but maybe it pours rain. Maybe they have a little run of rocks coming down the mountain that you were planning to climb. You're not going to try to do that. So.
How did you meet Dad?
There was an organization in Iceland called Anglia, which had almost the English-speaking group that would like to meet to try to have a conversation in English, because that was supposed to be the language that was spoken there. And I don't recall how many of them. Were a group of us who thought we were such good linguists, you know, that we were going to go. And they had a lot of Americans that came because they thought that they were helping, you know, by speaking English to these people who really wanted to learn the language. Of course, it became very confusing in the beginning, because when I go to school, I'm being taught the King's English, not American English. So it was always a little bit funny, you know. They would talk about their trucks, and the British would talk about their lorry. Well, they're far afield as far as the language is concerned. But that is where your father was. And he was in the counterintelligence corps, in the military. And there were a number of Icelanders, like Valdemar Björnsson in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Remember him? Okay. They were a part of the counterintelligence corps, the CIC. And that's how I met your father. There were at least a half a dozen Icelanders. There was Valdemar, there was another one called Ragnar, and Halldór, and they were all Icelanders. And then they had an American by the name of O'Brien and Wheeler and a number of others, but they all worked together. Like I said, that's how I met your father. Was at that particular type of a meeting at the Borg.
Oh yeah.
It was at the Borg Hotel. Yeah.
And what attracted you to each other?
Well, I thought he was a very intelligent man, and I just thought he was a real charmer. And of course, the Icelandic fellow says, you know, he's very, very good. He's a very nice human being, you know. And I could tell that. He was very polite, very courteous with everybody. And he had such a nice look about him. He was always, oh God, if you ever thought that you were going to find your father in an unpolished pair of shoes, you never would have seen him. Because that was something that, I mean, he was just so neat, very habit forming for himself. And so, I mean, what was there to like?
Describe your wedding.
Well, we went to the minister and to his house, and he was a beautiful man, that minister. We were not married in church, we were married at home. And then all the people, his Icelandic buddies and American buddies, they all went to your grandmother's house, which was It was a street with nothing but row houses. And Kaya, my mother, she lived there at that time. And then later on, when I brought you and your brother to Iceland, my mother had bought a beautiful place where her place was across the street from the bakery.
Bræðurborgur stikker 15.
Yeah. But do you remember what was across the street?
Yes, wienerbröd.
Yes. Every morning.
Yeah.
You got dressed and you went across the street for the wienerbröd. Yeah.
Did you and Dad have a honeymoon?
No, not as such, but we went to Skíðaskáli, which was the ski hotel, and it was very, very nice, but the weather was so bad that if we couldn't even quite make it, because we had to turn around and knock on my mother's door and say, we couldn't make it. Yep. Because the weather was so bad. Oh. And Alexander Miller, who was such a lover of Iceland that he took courses in the language. And later on he became Episcopal priest in Flint, Michigan. He was the driver for your father. And he had to drive all the way back. It was a delia, but everything worked, and my mother had a very nice reception. It was, alcohol wasn't very, very popular then, because it was very expensive. And of course, my mother was a widow, and there wasn't much money of any kind, but everybody seemed to. And Christiana, she's 8 when I get married.
Wow.
That was, and she was so beautiful. I have some pictures. As a matter of fact, right at the telephone, I'm going to show you. Right at the telephone, I have a picture when we were being married, and I wanted you to see it.
Okay. Oh. Show me later.
Yep, okay.
Okay. I do want to see it.
Okay, you will.
I think I did see it.
Well, this was given to me.
Yeah.
By someone else who had it.
Yeah. What was the best part of your marriage?
What was the best part? The 2 boys. Of course. That was such a marvelous thing. And your grandmother, oh. She would crawl if she thought she had to do that to see the 2 of you. Mm. And I tried very hard to off and on. There were times in between, but she came here a number of times. And you know something? I was very much surprised how in the world she managed to do that. Because we didn't have enough money to help her to get here. We couldn't help her financially. When your father has a captain's title in the military, I think that he had something like $90 a month. You know, but she would come, even when we lived in, we lived on Alston Road. You remember then?
1010 Alston Road.
She came there. And I'm trying to remember, she did come to Macon at least once. And I went home first with John alone, and then the two of you. And you thought that you could create money. Whether you thought you were going to spend it on your own or whether you were going to help out, I have no idea what your idea was. But this is what you did. You got in my purse and you took all the paper money and you made it all into pieces, stuck it under the base of the lamp, floor lamp. And I said, what in the God's name are you doing? And your answer was, I'm making money. So I thought that was a riot. And another time, your brother sat himself in the window up on the second floor with his feet hanging out.
Oh.
Yeah. And I walked in and I thought, oh my God, let me grab this child, and I just.
Oh, boy.
Oh, he was having a ball. He's getting fresh air or something. Yeah. But I would say probably that was, but your father was very heavy, very strong worker. He spent more time at the office, but on every Saturday when he went, he used to take one or the other with him to the office. And of course, you boys, you enjoyed that because you could do all kinds of stuff at the office.
Yeah.
And I thought it was marvelous that he would take one or the other, but he never took the two of you together. It was always one at a time. Mm. But he also worked very hard even on a Saturday. But one thing that he hated more than anything in the world was to have to fly.
Mm.
He was not much happy to have to fly from here to anywhere. Which I think was the beginning of his drinking.
Mm.
I think he was just trying to deaden his own feelings and cut down on his fear. He had such fear of flying. And that I don't think that was terribly unusual, because the flying was then not what you call something that 100% of men did.
Mm.
They didn't have to. But in his job, that was part of it.
What was the hardest part of your marriage?
His drinking. Because to me, drinking to that extent was weakness and cheap. But he found the most unusual places to put them. He had a spare tire out in the garage. And inside that spare tire, he had supply.
Mm.
Downstairs in the basement, in the rafters, I don't think he always knew how much he had there. But you know, these two places, the rafter in the basement and the spare tire in the garage, to me is very, very strange place to keep it. But that's the way it was.
Well, he was hiding it.
Hmm?
He was hiding it.
He thought he was hiding it. And he did a good job of hiding it. But I found it.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I think I just took a guess. And but he always wanted to do everything himself. He wanted to paint. the exterior windows.
Yeah. Hmm.
Do you remember any of that?
I remember he fell off the ladder.
Oh, you do?
Yes.
Do you remember him going with the bucket? Oh, it took 6 weeks of preparation. And the reason why it took 6 weeks of preparation, he saved every can of peas, can of tomatoes, and they had to be hand washed, sun dried. And then he had to get a brush that I think cost something like $17. It had to have a special kind of hair.
Hmm.
Now he goes through the window in the bedroom to get to the windows there. And now the phone rings. And he forgets that he has the bucket of paint on the window ledge.
Oh.
And of course, he weighed 210 pounds and he was almost just about 6 foot tall. And in goes the bucket with the paint on the brand new carpet that I had sweated for
Oh.
to get for my bedroom. And I come home and he's saying, hurry boys, I'm sure your mother's going to be home very soon. And I'm downstairs. I'm just walking in the front door. The three of you are on your hands and knees on the floor trying to clean up the paint.
That's right.
Oh, do you remember any of that?
Yes, I do.
Oh. Oh, when he oh, I mean it was he couldn't put a straight nail into a wall. He couldn't do it if he tried, but he always had to try it first.
Yeah. Well, he wasn't much of a handyman.
Oh, are you kidding? He would never have won a prize. Oh gosh. But there were so many other things that were very, very nice, very pleasant. He just did the wrong thing. And I found myself being such a liar. I couldn't handle it anymore. I was lying so much, I couldn't remember what I had said. Because we were supposed to be here on a Saturday to play bridge and have dinner first. And I would come home at 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock, and he was passed out. How in the world am I going to go and take him out? So I had to say, I just came home, and Walter is so sick. He is really, he probably has a temperature of 115.
Oh, gee.
And that's how I would cover up. And I just got tired of lying.
Mm.
And you know who knew him? Sally and Stan. Because we belong to the same club. Oh. Any other questions, please?
Well, what kind of advice can you give your two grandchildren about marriage?
Make it a 50%er. Listen and talk, and then talk and listen. Because with one person talking, that's making a speech. There's a good conversation is pro and con. And it should be balanced. And if they do that, there is no way that things cannot be ironed out. My father handled it very well. He said, whatever you say, dear, you know. But he knew that he wasn't going to get a chance on the other side. So he said, just said whatever. He's funny. Christiana and Louisa and I, we were talking about how various couples react to the annoyance with the other. So now I was asked, what did your mother do? And I thought they were going to die, laughing. I said, my mother always started on the drapes. She started removing every time when she got angry, and angry enough with my father, she would start removing the draperies. And I always stood there and I thought to myself, I would have thought that the drapes would be the last thing that she would take down. You know, she was starting somewhere in the center of the room and not in the window. But so if they can just keep it a give and take, don't expect that you own it all, and don't give it all.
What was the best part of raising your children?
That they were alive, and they were human, and they were such intelligent boys. Because they were, both of you have God's given gifts. And that's, look at your own boys. I mean, don't you feel like that they are God's gift to you?
Sure.
And how? Oh. And so, I mean, when you are talking about children, you can't do anything but just adore them for what you have. And I wish I'd had a little girl. She would be so rotten today. Oh, would she be rotten? But I would enjoy making her even more rotten than I can think of.
Did you raise John and me the way you were raised?
No, I don't think so. I think that I was trying to be subsidiary of Dr. Spock. Dr. Spock wrote a book about how to with children, and I think that I was trying, and I thought that's the American way, and I've got to do it. That's like me learning how to cook. I wasn't going to learn how to do Indian food. I was going to learn how to make American food, and I was going to raise my children the way the Americans raised their children.
What were some of your favorite memories of John and me when we were little?
Oh, there were so many things. I had more fun just giggling and laughing. And the interesting thing is, I can still laugh. I can still giggle. I can find things very, very funny. Maybe somebody else doesn't think it's so funny. But I have told stories about the two of you. I sometimes, I'm speechless when I think back at some of the stuff, which at the time I questioned whether it was really funny, but I'm finding it funny now. Very funny. I think when I found your father on the floor cleaning the paint off the carpet, I can absolutely assure you I didn't think it was funny then.
That's right.
But today I find it to be such a funny story to tell that I have difficulty not laughing while I'm telling it. And I mean, there were so many things that I'm trying to think of something that you did, but there was always something almost every day. It was, oh yeah, you talk about being funny, and I know you remember this because I have reminded you a half a dozen times over the years. You were such a public relations person. Your teachers, they couldn't help but liking you. You walk up to a teacher, you put your arm around the waist, and you say, "You are my belt." This was one of your teachers. Now you know you didn't tell me that, she did. And we both laughed like hyenas. You you were with your whole classmates trying to, and that was just one of the little experiments you were doing. You were looking to see how a key works in a keyhole. Do you recall any of that?
Yes.
And what did you do? Everybody else, no, and nobody came up with any, and you were standing there in the back, and all of a sudden, you just go and explain it to them as if you're reading a piece of paper. How this works.
Well, I took a
Huh?
door lock apart.
Well, I know, but you also knew how it worked.
Uh-huh.
Do you know something? I could do that too, but I couldn't explain it to you.
Mm.
And I mean, there was always something like that. And you know, do you recall when your mother taught every summer the arts and crafts?
Mm-hmm.
At the schoolyard?
Yeah.
Yeah. It didn't take you long to learn it either.
Mm.
You could use, as you call it, the gimp.
Right.
Does it surprise you how much I can remember?
No, not really.
Oh, you just expected it.
I remember hearing some of this, or much of this,
Yeah.
about John and me. I mean,
Yeah.
your own upbringing, a lot of that's new to me.
Yeah.
Well, what advice could you give having children to Eric and Alex?
Yeah.
What advice would you give to Eric and Alex about having children?
Well, I hope the good Lord brings them to them. Because it would be a sin if this was the end of the line on what they have to offer the world. Because, you know, you have two boys that are both very, very well endowed with brain. And it would be a sin, just like I would have thought ending with you would not have been a very good way to spend the humanity. And I can't think of anything nicer than to be able to say that he is a descendant of, you know, his grandfather was this, his mother was that, and his aunt was this, and, you know, going through the family. And as you know yourself, you have quite a few people in our family who are in the field of music or the art. A great deal of our family are that way. So keep on trucking.
Well, I think you may have answered this, but what part of being a grandparent do you like most?
Oh, to just take a look at them and know where they are and where they're going and where they have been. I mean, I have a feeling that if somebody looks into my face and they're listening to your son, hell, I just want the world to know. It's mine. That's all. Because I'm very, very proud of them. And having something to be proud of is half of life. Nothing is worthwhile if you don't have that. Yep.
What was the funniest thing that ever happened to you?
The funniest thing?
Yeah.
There was so much I could write a whole book. I wouldn't be able to pick one. Not at all. Because there's been so many things that are delightfully funny. shall I tell you something that absolutely touched me so here? I was having dinner over there. And I've had a couple of incidences there. And which have not been very happy for me because I have passed out. I know I'm ill. So, a young lady was waiting on us. I woke up and I came back, and there's a note on my where I sit, and she has written me a note. And on the note she says that she's so sorry that I don't feel well, but she says, "You are still the most beautiful lady in this group, in this dining room." And I thought to myself, you know, I'm afraid somebody's going to take an exception to what she's doing. And you know, I don't think I have seen her but once since. I have a feeling she was transferred somewhere else. Mm-hmm. Because they are not supposed to be personal. They're supposed to be waiters and waitresses. Mm-hmm. But I couldn't believe what I was seeing in front of me, telling me this. And I'm trying to think who, it was somebody that knew about it, because there was somebody who sat next to me, made some remark about it. But she thought it was exceptionally touching that she should do that. Yeah. Well, you don't have to be the most beautiful woman anywhere, as long as you're not the ugliest one. You know, doesn't matter.
Can you think what the proudest moment of your life was?
Say that again.
Can you think what the proudest moment was?
No. No.
How about,
because pride is something that comes and goes. Mm-hmm. Maybe you're proud of this today, but then you have another thing happening 2 days later, and you're most proud of that. Yeah. So you have a basket full.
Can you think of a particularly embarrassing moment?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so.
Any you care to share?
My slip fell.
Your slip?
Yeah.
Okay.
In those days, and I'm talking about as a young woman, your slip had a wide lace on the bottom, and that stuck down below your dress. You know, it was like, this is the lace, and here is your dress, and so this is hanging down, and the straps came loose, and my slip fell down.
Your slip slipped?
Yes, my slip slipped. And I thought that was terribly, terribly embarrassing.
Oh my. When was that?
I probably was 17, maybe.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. But then I also gave my slip away one time. We were all in gym, and there was a young gal. I worked for her sister at one point in time later on, and I felt so bad because she never owned a slip, and my mother had just made me one of those fancy slips, and we were undressing and dressing for the gym, because we wore uniforms for gym. And I felt so bad that she didn't have one that I gave her the slip that my mother just finished.
Oh my.
Yeah. But I had to go home and tell my mother what I had done because I came home without the slip.
Mm.
And I thought she was going to bawl me out, no living in. And she showed some irritation with me for about 2 minutes. And then that was finished, and she said, I'll make you another one. So I felt very good about having given my slip away. Yep.
What do you think has been your most important learning experience?
Learning?
Learning experience.
Oh, I think when I went to that school in Ísafjörður after I finished Kvennaskóla, that was a school that wasn't only a cooking school. It was a school for young ladies to know how to behave at a table, or you know, and setting a table and being a lady.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was very important, and I think that it made me maybe a little bit overzealous with ethics. You know, and for instance, when I see a young lady in a restaurant or a nightclub or whatever it is, and she has a bottle of beer and she goes blah, 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 blah. You know, to me that is icky, and that is not very ladylike. All of those little things irritate me, but that seems to go in generation here and a generation there. And or seeing someone come to church in a skirt that is up to their adenoids.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I am very critical of that, and sometimes I wonder whether maybe I should not be. I should let them be and not think all this stupid thing, you know.